The air was heavy that summer morning in 1786, but the silence wasn't peace. It was the kind that comes just before tragedy. 12-year-old Hannah Occuish stood on the edge of a lonely field in New London, Connecticut, eyes searching She wasn't like the others. Born into poverty, abandoned by society, Hannah had never been anyone's daughter in the true sense. She was a mixed-race Native American girl, Pequot, by blood and invisible by the world's standards. Her mother was labeled a fallen woman, and her father never named. By the time she could walk, Hannah was already surviving, and yet no one truly saw her, not even when she was dragged through town in shackles. Years before, when Hannah was just 6, she and her brother had lured a young girl into the woods and nearly beat her to death for a necklace. That single act sealed her fate. She was separated from her family and placed into servitude for a white widow. She became the help, the quiet hand, the eyes that stayed down. Only a fragile, panicked confession from a girl who'd never known safety, but in a world already prepared to blame her. It was enough. For 6 years, she worked, cooked, obeyed until the morning. Little Eunice Bowles was found dead by a stone wall. The child's skull was cracked, her small arms bruised, and rocks had been stacked over her body as if death had to be buried quickly. He claimed she lured the child with a colorful scrap of cloth, bashed her head with a rock, strangled her, then covered her body with stones to stage an accident. The town was furious. Shock turned to fear, and fear into rage. Someone had to answer. No one questioned why she never mentioned any of those details herself. No one cared. Her young face held no anger, just a quiet desperation. Her eyes scanning the crowd one last time, hoping someone, anyone, might stand up. Among them stood Reverend Henry Channing, who had made Hannah's death his mission. He preached for over an hour, warning parents to raise obedient children or they will end up like her. And someone saw Hannah. She didn't run. She said she knew nothing. Her trial had no forensic evidence, no witnesses, just a scared girl's words under pressure. Was Hannah guilty or simply the easiest target? She even mentioned 4 boys she'd seen in the area, trying to help. Could a child so broken and alone really carry out such cruelty? Or had the world simply found it easier to believe a monster existed, especially if she looked like Hannah? But no one listened. The next day, they brought her to the home of the dead girl. They didn't ask. They forced her to look. Confronted with the lifeless body of a child, Hannah broke down. Over 235 years later, people are finally asking the question that should have come first. What if she didn't do it? 12 years old, alone, terrified, and exhausted, she confessed. Or so they claimed. There was no blood on her clothes, no scratches, no witnesses. In court, Hannah sat still, silent, calm, not because she didn't feel, but because she'd long been taught not to. The only evidence presented was her confession. Under advice from a court-appointed defense, she pled not guilty. The confession, they argued, was taken under pressure and fear. The judge didn't care. He painted a story of revenge. That weeks earlier, little Eunice had accused Hannah of stealing strawberries, and Hannah had waited to retaliate. No one questioned how a 12-year-old girl could plan and execute such a calculated crime alone. The judge, cold and certain, declared sparing you due to your age would be dangerous to the public. And with that, Hannah was sentenced to hang. In December of 1786, a crowd gathered beneath gray skies. She was there, in front of them all, forced to listen as he called her wicked. No one did. Hannah, the time for you to die is come, the Reverend said. And just like that, the rope was pulled. Hannah Occuish was gone, but her story didn't end at the gallows. Centuries later, questions began to rise. In 2023, journalist Jessica Seuss highlighted the cracks, the weak motive, the lack of physical proof, and Hannah's refusal to confess again despite pressure from the Reverend. Now, a growing task force is working to exonerate her name. Hannah Occuish was the youngest person ever executed in U.S. history and the last woman hanged in Connecticut. She never had a voice in life, but maybe, just maybe, she'll be heard in death.